CO, this is BS. You could almost hear the tendons in Sergeant Mandrus's neck as he turned his head to look at the inmate. The officer sitting beside him, Officer Kyle, was already preparing to do damage control. But the sergeant put his hand up and approached the window instead. Sergeant Mandrus had been doing this job for a decade, and he was probably one of the longest-standing officers who still worked at Stragview. Most of the rest had gone by now, packing it in as conditions got steadily worse. But not Mandrus. His dad had worked corrections, and his grandfather had been a cop. There wasn't going to be any quitting for him, and he had too much time in to stop now. He had spent the better part of a decade listening to these guys bitch and moan about one thing after another, and he wasn't about to sit here and take it for one more minute. What seems to be the issue, inmate? They've taken everything away from us. We can't work in the kitchen, we can't work in the laundry, and now we can't even work on the grounds. It's bad enough we're in prison, but now we can't even do anything. I want to know what's going on. Why all of a sudden are we not allowed to do anything, like, a little extra on the side, or even just get out of the dorm so we don't have to be here all day? Mandrus stood up from his chair, rising to his full and impressive 6'2". It didn't hurt that the inmate he was speaking to was on the ground, about 2 feet below him, and it took some of the bluster out of the man when he had to look up at the sergeant. Do you know what these stripes on my arm mean, inmate? Yeah, means you're a sergeant. Correct. Now, which one of these stripes leads you to believe that I'm the warden of Stragview? Huh, you wish you were the warden. That got a smile and a chuckle from Mandrus. He wished he were many things. Rich, wealthy, good-looking, but never once had he wished that he was the warden of the prison. In a world of thankless jobs, that was a thankless job amongst thankless jobs. The warden had to eat all kinds of shit, and then he had to take all the strife by himself. There wasn't enough money in the state to convince Mandrus to be the warden of a place like this, though it might be interesting to see them try to convince him. On that, you are wrong. My question, though, is what makes you think I have anything to do with the jobs you work or what you do all day long? The inmate threw his hands up at that, which was about what he had expected, and Mandrus took his seat again and resumed doing very little, one of his favorite pastimes. He liked working in the prison because it was 80% sitting on ass and about 20% of actual work. That was a metric that some people would have found dull as dishwater, but to him, it was a great way to make 24.5 an hour. Why did they take all the jobs away from the inmates? Officer Kyle asked. Mandrus shrugged. Who knows? Probably some security reason or another. If they took it away, it was probably for a damn good reason. Either way, it's above my pay grade, and way above yours, kid, so don't give it a lot of thought. Mandrus had seen a lot in his time at Stragview. He'd seen inmates kill each other. He'd seen escape attempts. He'd even seen a pretty good rendition of Sharky's Machine put on by a bunch of inmates out on the rec yard who were trying to remember the plot of the movie. But in all that time, the only thing you learned for sure was not to question the chain of command. Questioning the chain of command was how you got fired, or even worse, how you found yourself doing a whole lot of work that was really none of your business at the end of the day. If they wanted to take the jobs away from the inmates, then they would take them away. Period. End of story. That was all she wrote. At the end of the day, Mandrus didn't really care what these guys did all day, as long as it didn't get him in trouble. It was really none of his business. I know what I saw. Dude, there's no way that's what you saw. Derek looked at Mark with growing anger, but it was hard to really get mad at his words. Derek couldn't believe what he'd seen either, and that was the problem. You couldn't exactly tell anybody what you had seen if you didn't really believe it yourself. I'm telling you, Derek said as he poured cream into his coffee, there's something fishy about the new program in the laundry room. I don't know what it is, but it's not healthy. Mark laughed. What? You trying to tell me they have zombies working in the laundry room? Derek put his hands up, begging Mark to quiet down. Don't say shit like that. I could probably get fired for even mentioning it. The fact that they haven't told anybody means that they probably don't want anybody to know about it. Yeah, or, more likely, you walked through a bad batch of K2 smoke during your round and hallucinated some off-the-wall stuff. Derek rolled his eyes and spooned sugar on top of his cream. Yeah, that might have been a viable story if I hadn't been out of the dorm for about an hour before I saw them. I'm telling you, there's something fishy going on. They're taking all the inmates' jobs away, and they're starting to get restless about it. They're going to have a full-scale riot on their hands before long. All they have to look forward to is wreck and medical call-outs. That's going to get old real fast. And then they're going to find entertainment somewhere else. That's still not even the biggest issue here, though. The biggest issue is, he said as he pitched his voice low again, is who is taking their jobs. Look, Morgan, if you say you saw it, I believe you. But it's really out there and not something that's going to be easy to wrap my head around. I think I'd believe it if you told me you saw a ghost in the dorm. Most of us have seen shit like that, but a whole laundry room full of them? That trip is a little hard to swallow. I believe you, came a voice from behind him. Both of them turned, and Derek was surprised to find the old guy, who usually worked post, sitting in the break room. It was unusual to see him out of a truck, but he did still work confinement sometimes. It was even rarer to see him out of confinement when he was on this side of the fence, and if half the stories Derek had heard were true, he was supposed to be the guy that would believe almost anything. Mark scoffed, but the old man didn't seem to care. Well, that's just great, Derek. At least you have one person who swallows this crap. You two talk it over. I gotta get back to my dorm before count time. Mark left, and Derek took a seat across from the old man, the infamous Sergeant Mobley. So, you're saying you don't think it's far-fetched? Derek asked. Sergeant Mobley shook his head. Sure don't. I saw them myself a few months ago, when I was out on post. That made Derek want to roll his eyes, and he had to refrain from doing so before he ran off the only person that seemed to be buying what he was selling. You saw ghosts out on post? Sure did. So did quite a few of us. At least 4 of us that I know of. They'll never admit to it. We were all sworn to secrecy, but we saw them. Sworn to secrecy? Derek said in disbelief. By who? Mobley took a sip of his coffee and fixed him with a very knowing look. I think you can guess. He was right. Derek could certainly field a guess on who would tell people not to talk and then expect them to do it. There was only one real king here in Stragview, and everybody knew it. There was one man who could tell you to jump, and there wasn't much you could do but jump. Derek glanced around out of habit to make sure he wasn't being eavesdropped on before he went on. You're talking about the warden. Who else? Mobley asked. You can be sure that if something like this is going on, then he either authorized it or is the cause of it. Derek nodded. That logic tracked. Nothing happened here without the warden knowing about it, and that was a fact. Some days, he sat up in that tower like a king, just watching all the peasants down below, and it always made Derek feel a little weird. There was talk that the warden wasn't exactly human himself, but that was just talk. Nobody really believed that shit. And if they did, they kept it to themselves. The last thing you wanted to do was get a reputation as a blabbermouth and have the warden suddenly make you disappear. That was more loose talk too, but more people seemed to believe it rather than not. In Stragview, the warden might as well be God. I don't have long before I have to get back to my post, Mobley said. So why don't you tell me what you saw, and maybe we can compare notes. Derek told him the whole story, front to back, and when he finally told all of it, he expected Mobley to look at him like he was crazy. He expected the old man to sit his coffee cup down and tell him that wasn't anything to get excited about, and that he might want to wipe around his ears because they were awfully wet. You just got used to that kind of thing in the Department of Corrections. Everybody always had a better story than yours. Everybody always had a more exciting one. Instead, Mobley put down his coffee and nodded, saying that it sounded like he had seen something terrible. That's it? You believe me? Well, I've seen things too, kid. Things that make me believe your story more than others might. I know some of the restless dead that make Stragview their home, and I wouldn't want to run into them either. So what do we do about it? He asked, but Mobley only shrugged. Not much you can do. I assume that much like me, you have bills to pay, so your best bet is going to be to keep your head down and your mouth shut. Derek looked into his half-full coffee cup and felt kind of hopeless. This was a big deal, and if Mobley was to be believed, there really wasn't anybody he could tell. It made him feel a little better to know that somebody else knew and believed him, but he was really hoping for some practical advice on how to handle it. Keep your head down and your mouth shut hadn't exactly been what he was looking for, but he supposed that would have to do. The old man patted him on the back, and Derek jumped, having not realized that he'd gotten up. I'll be in confinement tomorrow night. Let me talk to Cap and see if he'll let you work with me. Sometimes it helps to have someone to talk to, and I can definitely share some stories. That'll make you feel a little bit better, I think. Derek nodded, getting up as he brought his coffee with him. I don't think I've ever worked in confinement. It's something I've always kind of wanted to do. I've just never been selected for it. Well, Mobley said, the story I gotta tell you is better with visuals, and there's no better visual than the shadowy remnants of Quad 2, and the showers that spawned it. Just what are you planning? Strauss asked, when he passed Miss Evergreen in the hallway in admin. Miss Evergreen turned to look at him, and her smile could have given people diabetes. A.W. Strauss, I can't imagine what you could mean. Strauss crossed his arms and gave her a less than approving look. I think you know exactly what I mean. You've taken away all of the work programs from the inmates and given them to your little ghoul squad. You have the warden so twisted around your finger that I can hear his spine groan, and your actions have put us in a very compromising position with our charges, to the point we are in danger of a riot. All of these things are common knowledge, and yet the warden doesn't seem to see it. So I'll ask again, what are you up to? Miss Evergreen smoothed her dress and turned to give Strauss her full attention. She was a pretty woman. Nobody would have argued she wasn't, but she was possessed of an odd steel that you normally didn't see in women her size. Strauss's mother had been possessed of that steel, and it had helped her escape his drunken father before he could put one of her children in the hospital. Strauss had liked it then, but it was not something he particularly wanted to see in this young woman, especially when she was so close to upsetting everything that he had worked for here. I'm saving the prison money, Mr. Strauss. Wasn't that what you wanted? Didn't you want the prison to be more economical? Didn't you want a tighter bottom line? Not if it is going to put us in full rebellion. She smiled, but none of the sweetness was there this time. I'm sorry. I was under the impression this was a prison. Aren't you supposed to have charge of these men? Aren't you supposed to have them under control? Ah, control is an illusion in this place, Strauss said, as studious as any law professor. The men in here give us control for only as long as we can take it. When they sense weakness, when they sense unrest, they will take that as a sign to wrest that control back from those who can no longer keep it. She sniffed. So keep it. I'm simply doing what I was hired to do. If you don't like it, then I can take my show on the road. Strauss shook his head. You speak very well, but it doesn't take a genius to realize you don't have the prison's best interest at heart. Why do these things, if not for the betterment of all of us? Why does anyone do anything? Is it because we love something? Or is it because we despise it enough to watch it burn? I don't understand, but I will tell you now, if your little games lead to the fall of this prison, you'll have worse things than me to deal with. My dear Mr. Strauss, there are far worse things than you at work here. Pray that you don't discover any of them. She left with a swish of her hips and a knowing smile spread across her face. A.W. Strauss was left to hope that whatever games she was playing, it was a game the warden was better at. Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, then please feel free to click on one of the videos we have up here. Maybe look at one of the playlists if you're trying to get caught up. I know, there's so many videos on the channel. There's so many series that are going at the same time. Sometimes you just need a little refresher course, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the views. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Maybe hit the bell so you don't miss anything. We upload a lot on this channel, so you won't want to miss a single story as they come out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the Amazon link down there. There's quite a few books in my Amazon account. You can have a look, and if you'd like a signed copy, get up with me through email, and I'll be happy to work something out with you. Also, there's links to my Patreon, and you can become a member on the channel if you'd like your spooky a little bit early. Patrons and members on the $5 tier get their videos 12 hours early. That's in the morning as opposed to in the evening. Patrons at the $10 level also get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one. Speaking of my patrons, you should see them appearing right now. Just wanted to take a minute to say how much I appreciate all of you. Patrons, subscribers, however you give to the channel. I really appreciate everything you do, and it truly touches me that you have chosen to support the channel in this way. Well, that's enough for now. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.